You can't be serious, I said, though deep down I knew he was. Justin didn't hesitate. He stood in the doorway like someone delivering bad news from a bank. Mom, this house is too big for you now. It just makes sense. We'll handle it. You can stay with Shell until we work things out. My legs froze. My chest sank, heavy and cold. I wasn't being asked, I was being dismissed. The home I built, the place with my name on the deed. Suddenly, I was the outsider. 4 years earlier, when Justin lost his job in Phoenix, he and Rachel had arrived with baby Nora in their arms. Just until we're steady again, he'd promised. I'd given them rooms, shifted my life to the small office so they could spread out. I cooked, cleaned, paid bills, kept the house running. Now, Rachel had her thriving photography business, Justin worked real estate, and their temporary stay had become permanent occupation. They repainted the kitchen, replaced my curtains, swapped furniture. My grandmother's piano vanished, donated for space, Justin said. Space I no longer had. I've always told you. You could stay as long as you needed, I whispered. And we're thankful, Justin replied, his tone flat. But it's different now. We've got kids. You'll be better off with Shelley, my daughter with a tiny condo, 3 cats, and no room for me. That was for emergencies, not exile. Rachel passed by me carrying laundry, eyes down. The kids shouted upstairs, the dog barked in the hall. This used to be my calm, my haven. Now I was background noise. Justin kept speaking, reasonable, rehearsed. The deed, I interrupted, sharp at last, still in my name. He paused, blinked, then sighed. Come on, Mom. Do you really want to play it that way? I didn't answer. I walked to my cramped back room, the only space left. That night I wedged a shoe against the door. Not for safety, just to feel I had one line no one could cross. The bed sagged. The dresser was chipped. The lamp they'd given me had no bulb. They called it Grandma's Nook, like I was a stray cat lucky to be kept at all. 4 years ago, I opened my doors with love. Now I was invisible in my own home. They erased me piece by piece. My garden turned into a play yard. My tulips ripped out. George's wind chime tossed because it annoyed them. Even my pantry had been pushed to one lonely shelf. I wasn't just being displaced. I was being erased. But one truth remained, this house was mine. George and I built it with sweat, sacrifice, and care. He put the deed in my name, saying, if anything happens, you'll be secure. He trusted me, and now his words echoed. If you don't protect your space, someone else will take it. The next morning, I sat at the kitchen table early, coffee in hand. Rachel appeared, surprised. You're up early, she said lightly. I met her eyes, calm, steady. Just thinking, I told her, about what belongs to me. Cool, Mom, Rachel muttered when I mentioned the date. She barely looked at me. I nodded, as if that small acknowledgement mattered. At least someone had heard me say it. That night, I went to bed but didn't sleep. I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, my fingers brushing the frame of the photo of George and me, the one that used to hang proudly in the hallway, before they replaced it with a generic beach print from Target. I didn't cry. Not that night. I'd already shed too many quiet tears over the last year. Forgotten birthdays, skipped Mother's Days, being told to knock before entering my own kitchen because Rachel was in the middle of a shoot. No, I didn't cry. I started planning. The next morning, I pulled the property folder from my drawer. The papers were still there, deed, tax records, notarized letters, all in my name. I hadn't just signed those papers decades ago. I'd earned every inch of this place. George had built it with his hands, but I had paid, managed, and kept it alive. This was my house, not theirs. The office where we notarized the deed was long gone, replaced by a trendy bakery selling gluten-free cupcakes. But the document itself sat in a yellowed plastic sleeve in my drawer, faintly smelling of ink and lemon drawer liners. Owner of record June Carroll. Sole owner. George may have been the builder, but I was the one who shouldered the risk, the taxes, the refinancing during lean years, the burden of keeping everything afloat when his heart stopped one Tuesday afternoon. I remembered the lawyer's words back then. You're in good shape, June. You own it free and clear. At the time, ownership had felt hollow. The rooms were too quiet. But now the house wasn't quiet anymore. It was overflowing. With Rachel's photo backdrops and ring lights, with Justin's clients admiring our place, with children who barely looked at me and a dog that gnawed at my dining chairs. Mine. And yet, they were throwing dinner parties here without asking. Most times I only discovered them by the stack of dirty dishes in the sink or the lingering smell of wine. On rare occasions I was invited. Usually I was told kindly, "It'll be too loud for you, Mom. Why don't you relax in your room?" Like my place in this home had been reduced to the back corner. I sat at the kitchen table one morning and asked, "Where's the paprika?" Rachel was digging through my spice drawer, now filled with expensive jars labeled in foreign words. Without glancing up, she said, "Oh, probably tossed it. We haven't used it in years." I found it later, shoved behind the gourmet salts and truffle flakes, dented tin pushed to the back like me. That afternoon, I looked up the county records online. My name still stood, not Justin's, not Rachel's, mine. I wrote a list. At the top of my yellow notepad. Who lives here, Ves, who owns it? Then I listed the names Justin, Rachel, Nora, Mason, and me. Only one name had legal weight. Mine. I started another list. Things they changed without asking. Curtains replaced. Garden destroyed. George's chair gone. Family photos taken down. Teapot replaced with an electric kettle. New lock installed on the front door. The list went on. That evening, I folded the paper and tucked it into the deed folder. Then I picked up the phone and called a number I hadn't dialed in almost 10 years. "Good afternoon, Mrs. Carroll." The voice answered, crisp and professional. "I think it's time I review some documents. Property ownership, power of attorney, access rights. I want everything checked," I said firmly. There was a pause, then the sound of typing. "Of course. Let's schedule a meeting." I hadn't meant to become their maid. That wasn't the arrangement. At first, it was simply helping. Groceries, babysitting, laundry. But slowly, I became the one who remembered the toilet paper, who folded their towels, who kept things running. They never said thank you. But if I forgot something, if I faltered, Justin would frown and say, "Mom, you okay? You've been a little off lately." Off. I kept a notebook in the kitchen drawer. It had started as grocery lists but turned into a quiet ledger. Babysitting hours. Money spent. Loads of laundry. Groceries. Over 2,000 in 3 months, all from my pocket. They never paid me back. Meanwhile, they had brunches, new patio furniture, spa cards for Rachel's birthday. My own birthday passed unnoticed. No card, no cake. The small slights cut deeper than they should have. Rachel asking me not to wear certain sweaters around her clients. Justin suggesting I stay in my room during Nora's party, so the kids wouldn't feel overwhelmed. They were polite, but never kind. One day, I overheard Rachel telling her sister on the phone, "It's like having free childcare and housekeeping. She's just part of the structure." Part of the structure. That night, I cried quietly in the pantry. I cried because I'd traded independence for the illusion of family. Because I let them mold me into something useful instead of someone valued. But I also realized something. It wasn't too late to change the ending. The final straw came on my 78th birthday. I wasn't expecting balloons or a party, just acknowledgement, a card, a slice of cake, something. That morning, I baked my own lemon pound cake. I set it out with plates and forks, hoping they'd notice. All day I waited. Rachel typed away at her laptop. The kids were at school. Justin came home, kissed her, grabbed a drink. No one said a word. I sat at the kitchen table with my tea, the cake untouched in front of me. And I knew, with a clarity sharper than any pain, something had to change. Justin and Rachel were camped out on the sofa, eating leftover takeout with the television humming. The kids burst in after school, ran straight upstairs, and disappeared into their games. The cake sat untouched. By 9 o'clock, I slid it back into the fridge. Something in me shifted, not a break, just a stone rolling free after holding too much weight. In my little room, I sat on the edge of the bed, eyes fixed on George's photograph. His smile was still creased at the corners, even in a frame. He'd always known how to speak hard truths. "Don't let people take you for granted, June." He'd said it when Justin was a teenager, when Rachel first appeared, even when he handed me the deed. "You're the anchor," he told me. But an anchor doesn't have to sink. I pulled the property folder from the drawer, not for comfort but for clarity. Deed, tax papers, insurance, every line in my name. Then I opened the little notebook where I tracked chores and bills. On the page marked "Last Straw," I wrote in block letters. No one remembered my birthday, not even Justin, not even a text. Below that I added, "I'm done." It wasn't a complaint, it was a declaration. Years of quietly helping, dipping into savings. Being invisible in my own home, the lamp with no bulb, the pantry shelf shrunk to a corner, my garden turned into a play yard. George's chair chewed by the dog. I shut the notebook, placed it beside the deed, and wrote down real names at the top of a fresh page: property lawyer, financial advisor, locksmith. Underneath, make appointments. When I finished, I went back to the kitchen, cut myself a slice of the cake, and ate it slowly in the dark. Dry edges, sweet center, the clock ticking. No one noticed. My first act of rebellion was claiming my own cake. As I chewed, a flicker of anticipation stirred, like the first cool gust before a storm. The next morning, when the house emptied, Rachel at a newborn photo shoot, Justin at back-to-back showings, the kids at school, I brewed fresh coffee and spread my papers across the dining table. Receipts, checks, stubs, invoices, donation slips. I had never meant to build a case, I just never threw anything away. Now I was glad. Grocery bills, school fees, vet visits. Camera lenses bought with my card, Justin's online course, even matching Christmas pajamas in every size but mine. In 15 minutes the total topped $30,000, not counting groceries or utilities. I logged into my bank account, every bill on autopay under my name. Electric, gas, water, Wi-Fi rising each month. Then I noticed the security system Justin had installed. His name as the primary contact, not mine. My house made safer. By locking me out of control. I wrote that down too. I opened the legal folder, the living will, the power of attorney George, and I drafted after his heart scare. I was still fully in charge. Justin's authority only triggered if I became incapacitated. And I was far from that. A knock startled me. I slid the papers under a napkin. Just the mailman, handing over an envelope addressed to me. Inside were fresh, certified copies of the deed and tax history. Black and white proof this house was mine. No baby swing or paint color could rewrite that. The mortgage, the repairs, the lean years with no presents. All of it ran through my name. I picked up the phone. Called the lawyer first. I need to review my estate papers and revoke access previously granted to my son. Thursday morning, in office. No hesitation. Then the financial advisor George and I had used long ago. His daughter now ran the firm. "I want to protect my assets from people I once trusted," I said. She cleared her calendar. I stacked the papers, wiped the table, not as a servant but to clear space for what was next. By 5 the front door opened. Backpacks dropped, heels clicked, voices called out. "Mom, did you eat? Want me to warm something up?" "I'm good," I said, smiling to myself. Just paperwork. Back in my room, the folder lay across my lap. Owner's documents, the label read. For the first time in months, the word owner felt real. A few days later, I stepped into the attorney's office. The same scuffed floor, the same dusty plant, the same too loud clock. The receptionist was new, but the voice behind the door hadn't changed. "June Carroll," said Miss Travers as she rose and offered her hand. "I wondered when I'd see you again." I smiled, taking her hand firmly. She had guided George and me through deeds, taxes, and small disputes for nearly 4 decades. But today was different. Today, I wasn't there to ask permission. I was there to take my power back. We sat across from each other at the polished oak desk. I set the folder down gently, as though it held family history, not legal forms. "I want to revoke Justin's secondary power of attorney," I said, steady and calm. "And I need the property rights reviewed and locked down. No shared access, no co-signing, nothing without my written approval." Miss Travers leaned back, studying me, not as an aging widow, but as a client with authority. "That was what I needed. That can be arranged," she said. "Do you believe he's planning to act without your consent?" "He already behaves like the house belongs to him," I answered. "I just want the record to show otherwise." She nodded, opened a file on her computer, and began typing. "Would you like to appoint a new secondary?" "Yes," I replied without hesitation. "My granddaughter, Tessa. She checks on me without expecting anything in return." Miss Travers lifted her gaze. "That speaks volumes." I didn't answer. We both understood what it meant. For 40 minutes we combed through everything. Will deed, power of attorney, medical directives, bank access, even utilities. She drafted new documents, each page crisp and waiting for my signature. When we reached the deed, she paused and smiled softly. You know, this was one of the first homes I ever recorded under a single name. Most couples chose both. But George, he trusted you. My throat tightened. He did. And now? She said, you're making sure no one else takes advantage of that trust. I nodded. We signed page after page, each notarized with a solid stamp that echoed in the quiet office. When we finished, she handed me 2 folders, one marked executed documents, the other client copies. The originals stay with me, she explained. These are yours. Keep them safe. Call me if you ever need them. I thanked her, collected the folders, and rose. I didn't hurry, but I didn't shuffle either. I moved with direction, a sense of forward momentum I hadn't felt since George was alive. My next stop was the financial advisor's office. Claire greeted me warmly, almost like family. I'd known her since she was a child shadowing her father during tax season. Now she ran the firm. She poured tea, offered cookies I didn't touch, and listened while I laid it all out. The expenses, the quiet erasure of my autonomy, the birthday they all ignored. You've got more than enough, Claire said, scrolling through my accounts. You could buy another house tomorrow. I don't want another house, I said simply. I want mine back. She smiled. Together we built a new plan: separate trusts, restricted access, daily transaction alerts. Justin's name vanished from everything. No emergency permissions. No automatic payments, no hidden hands on my accounts. Utilities were rerouted to a management app only I controlled. Want me to freeze the cards he's been using? She asked. I hesitated for a heartbeat. Yes, a click. Done, no guilt followed. Only quiet, like the air after heavy rain. Before I left, Claire gave me a new folder. I slipped it into my bag with the others. Outside, the wind carried the first edge of autumn. The air smelled sharper. I pulled out my phone, found the locksmith's number, and pressed call. I need the locks changed, I said when he answered. All of them. That night, they hosted a dinner party. Rachel called it a client mixer for her photography business. I wasn't invited. Not officially, not even in passing. That morning she had floated through the kitchen in silken heels, coffee in one hand, phone in the other. Try not to cook tonight, June. We'll need the kitchen clear. Not a request. Not even cruel. Just dismissal. So I nodded and stepped aside. All afternoon I watched them prepare. Rachel set champagne flutes and hors d'oeuvres. Justin vacuumed and shifted furniture, candles lit. The kids peeked down from upstairs while Rachel ordered them back up. Music played, curated, polished, not homey. By 7, guests began arriving louder. Clinking glasses, polished smiles. They admired the decor, the layout, the warm, modern vibe. Rachel glowed, thanking them as though the house were her creation. I heard her say, "We've been here for years. It's our forever home." No mention of me. I stayed in my room, door cracked, watching, listening. Like a shadow. By 8:30 I'd had enough. I took the law folder from my closet, opened it once more and skimmed the pages. The deed, the updated POA, the notarized confirmations. My fingers touched the locksmith's envelope. The keys were inside, heavy, cold, cut just for me later. When the guests had gone and the dishwasher hummed, I stepped into the living room. Justin and Rachel sat with wine glasses, laughing softly. Rachel looked up first. "Oh, hey, Mom. Did the noise keep you up?" "No," I said. Justin added, "We cleaned everything." "Don't worry. I'm not worried," I said. "But I will need everyone out of the house by the end of next week." Silence. Rachel blinked. "Wait, what?" "This is my home," I said evenly. "And I've decided it's time to reclaim it." They stared like I was speaking nonsense. "I don't understand," Justin said. "You don't need to. You just need to pack." At first they laughed. Justin actually chuckled, as though I were making a joke. Rachel gave the nervous smile people reserve for the elderly. "Mom," Justin said gently, like I was confused. "Maybe you're overtired. Let's talk tomorrow." I held up the locksmith's envelope. "Here are the new keys. The locks were changed this morning. You still have 5 days." The room froze. "You what?" Rachel's voice cracked. "You heard me," I said calmly. "This house is mine legally, entirely. Every shared access revoked. Accounts frozen, utilities back in my name. You'll have nothing under yours after this week." Justin's face flushed red. a mix of confusion, disbelief, and fury. You can't just do that. We live here. No, I corrected. You've stayed here for 4 years. You turned my home into yours, made decisions with my money, treated me like a guest. And I allowed it. But not anymore. Rachel's voice broke. We have children. June, you'd put your own grandkids out. I'd rather not, I said honestly. But I won't keep living as a stranger in my own house. That ends now? Tears welled in her eyes. But where will we go? The kids' school. You have time? I said. 5 days. Maybe 6, if you're respectful. That's my final offer. Justin clenched his fists, jaw tight. This is madness. You're destroying your own family. No, I replied, voice steady. I'm restoring myself. He stepped closer, lowering his tone, pleading. Mom, we can work this out. You could move back into the guest room. We'll make a schedule. No, I said firmly. I set the new keys down on the table by the entryway. One for the front, one for the back, one for the shed. Symbols of something simple but long overdue. Ownership of my own life again. I wasn't going to keep shaping my days around people who treated me as an obstacle instead of a person. Rachel cried. Real tears, or close enough to pass. For a moment my chest pulled tight, the familiar urge rising. To comfort, to smooth things over, to shrink myself so others could stretch. But I didn't. I walked away instead. My small room felt unchanged, quiet, spare, but when I shut the door behind me it was different. Because now it was mine, and I had the papers to prove it. Behind me I heard Justin's voice drop low, sharp with anger. We'll see about this, he muttered. You will, I called back. I turned the key in the lock and finally breathed. The next morning I started cutting ties. Not from spite, just from clarity. First, the internet. The account was mine. The bill had always come from my account, though they'd used it freely for more than a year. I logged in, unchecked the renewal, and scheduled a shut-off. By 9, Rachel's voice carried down the hall. Why isn't the Wi-Fi working? Moments later, Justin walked into the kitchen with his laptop like it was an injured limb. Mom, did the internet go down? No, I said, rinsing my mug. I turned it off. You'll need to set up your own. His eyes narrowed. You're serious? I met his gaze. I'm only getting started. Within hours, I canceled the car insurance I'd extended to cover their SUV when they couldn't qualify themselves. That afternoon, I updated the alarm system, removed Justin's name, and gave the company a new passcode, George's old chess move, a foil C5. The Sicilian defense, it felt fitting. That evening, I disconnected the garage door opener from my tablet. Rachel banged on my door minutes later. I'm late for a client. Can you open the garage? You can lift it by hand, I said evenly. Or take a cab. Her eyes narrowed. This is petty? No, I said softly. This is mine. And each time I said it, the words tasted sharper, truer. The shift was gradual but real. Justin's voice lost its edge. Rachel tempered her tone. Even the children approached me differently, eyes hopeful, asking if I'd read them a story. This time, I said yes. Not for them. For me. By mid-week, the air in the house had changed. Boxes appeared. Tape ripped. Phone calls turned curt. I didn't ask where they were going. They didn't tell me. I did my laundry. Baked muffins for myself. Watched an old film in the quiet. For the first time in years, my life felt like mine. On Thursday, a delivery came for the Carroll family. I signed, then neatly wrote return to sender. Not at this address. On Friday, the bank phoned. Justin had tried the joint card again. Decline it, I said. Permanently. That night, Justin knocked on my door. He stood there awkwardly, like a boy facing consequences. Can we talk? He asked. I nodded. He sat hunched, hands rough from worry. I know you're angry. I'm not, I said. Not anymore. Surprised, he looked up. I explained I had been angry, hurt, erased. But now I was simply finished. We didn't mean to take advantage, he said. We just got used to it. That's the danger. I told him. Silence looks like agreement. Until it doesn't. He admitted they had no place yet, maybe Rachel's sister for a short while. What about the kids? He asked. They'll visit, I said gently. If you let them. His voice cracked. Are you really going to make us leave? I'm going to let you leave, I answered. The official notice came Saturday. A letter from my lawyer slid under their door. Calm, firm, and clear. 72 hours to vacate or legal action would follow. No more whispered promises. No more delays. By mid-morning, Rachel erupted. She stormed into the kitchen, letter clutched in her hand. "You had this delivered. Who do you think you are?" she shouted. Her mascara streaked down her face. I sipped my tea. "I'm the owner, and you've had 6 days. Justin followed, phone in hand. "This isn't right. You blindsided us? I told you," I said. "This just makes it official." "You don't have to do this," he pleaded. "I do," I said simply. Rachel raged. "Humiliation, the kids, the neighbors. What do we tell people? That your own mother kicked you out?" "Tell them the truth," I replied. "That you lived in a house you didn't own, ignored every boundary, and were asked, kindly, to leave. After that, they packed faster." I stayed in my room, hearing the thump of boxes, the tape stretching, the refrigerator emptying. The kids' quiet sobs pierced through. They didn't deserve this fallout, but I couldn't save them from it either. I wrote each a note. Small, honest letters of love and explanation, and tucked them into their backpacks. By Sunday I made stew, left it on the stove with bowls, nothing more. They ate in silence. It wasn't forgiveness, it was dignity. On Monday the moving truck pulled up. Rachel brushed past me, red-eyed, carrying a box labeled office. Justin lingered, keys in hand. He looked older. "I'll call," he said. "You know where I am," I answered. The door shut, not slammed, just a soft click. And for the first time in years I stood alone in my house, empty, echoing mine. Do you want me to continue this into her life after reclaiming the house? How she rebuilds independence, peace, maybe reconnects with people who respect her, or keep it ending here with her quiet victory? Here's your text, fully rewritten in copyright-free language, with the same emotional weight and meaning preserved. I placed the new keys on the table near the door, front, back, and shed. Small pieces of metal, but each one marked the return of my independence. I refused to keep shaping my days around people who treated me like a burden. Rachel's tears came fast, convincing enough to almost pull me back into old patterns. That familiar tug stirred, the urge to console, to soften, to erase conflict by erasing myself. But I didn't give in. I walked to my room instead. It was still plain and quiet, but now it belonged to me, backed by documents no one could dispute. Behind me, Justin's voice dropped low with anger. "We'll see about this." "You will," I called back. Then I locked the door with my new key and let the air out of my lungs. The following morning, I began untangling their grip, not out of cruelty, just necessity. First, the internet. The account was mine, the bill had always been mine. Though they'd used it freely for a year, I canceled it. By 9, Rachel's voice echoed through the hall. "Why isn't the Wi-Fi working?" Minutes later, Justin entered the kitchen with his laptop like a wounded limb. "Did it go down?" he asked. "No," I said, rinsing my cup. "I shut it off." "You'll need your own." His face hardened. "You're serious?" I met his stare. "I'm just getting started." That afternoon, I cut the car insurance I'd added to cover their SUV. Then I called the alarm company, removed Justin's name, and replaced the passcode with George's old chess move, the 4C5. The Sicilian defense. It felt right. By evening I disconnected the garage opener from my tablet. Rachel knocked 10 minutes later. "I'm late." "Open the garage. You can lift it by hand," I said gently. "Or take a cab." Her eyes narrowed. "This is petty." "No," I replied quietly. "This is mine." And every time I said it, the words grew stronger. The household shifted. Justin spoke softer. Rachel checked her tone. The children, still innocent, asked me to read them a story. For once I agreed, not for them, but for myself. By midweek, boxes lined the hallway. I heard tape ripping, phones ringing, quiet arguments. I didn't ask where they were going, and they didn't say. I folded my laundry, baked for myself, watched old movies in peace. Thursday, a package came for the Carroll family. I signed, then crossed out the name and wrote return to sender. Not at this address. Friday, the bank called. Justin had tried the joint card. "Decline it," I said. Permanently. That night, Justin appeared at my door. He looked like a boy again caught doing wrong. "Can we talk?" he asked. I nodded. "I know you're angry," he began. "I'm not," I said. "Not anymore." I explained I had been angry, hurt, erased, but I was finished with that now. "We never meant to take advantage," he said. We just got used to it. The help, the house, you. That's the danger, I answered. When silence feels like permission. He admitted they had no place yet. Maybe Rachel's sister for a week. What about the kids? He asked softly. They'll visit, I said. If you allow it. Are you really going to make us leave? I'm letting you leave, I replied. Saturday morning, I slid an envelope under their door. My lawyer's letter, formal, calm, final. 72 hours to vacate or legal action would follow. By mid-morning, Rachel stormed into the kitchen, mascara smudged. You had this delivered. Who do you think you are? I looked up from my crossword. The owner, and you've had 6 days. Justin followed, tense. You blindsided us. I warned you, I said. This makes it official. Rachel shouted about humiliation, the children, the neighbors. What do we tell people? That your own mother threw you out? Tell them the truth, I replied. That you lived in a house you didn't own, ignored its owner, and were finally asked to leave. After that, they packed in earnest. I stayed in my room, letting them feel the weight of it. That night, I heard the kids cry. It pierced me, but I held firm. They didn't deserve the fallout, but neither did I. I left each child a note, gentle words of love, reminders they were always welcome. Slipped into their backpacks quietly. By Sunday, I cooked a pot of stew. I didn't serve it, just left it on the stove with bowls. They ate in silence. It wasn't forgiveness. It was self-respect. Monday morning, the moving truck arrived. Rachel brushed past, carrying boxes, her face raw from tears. Justin paused, keys in hand. He looked older. I'll call, he said. You know where I am, I answered. The door closed. Not slammed, just a quiet click. I stood in the empty house, surrounded by echo and dust. Finally mine.